Nobody tells you that your 20s are supposed to feel like this. The confusion, the comparison, the quiet 2 a.m. feeling that everyone around you is building something and you're still trying to figure out what you're even building towards. Nobody tells you because most people who've been through it are too embarrassed to admit they felt it too. Picture this, it's 2 a.m. You're lying in bed, staring at the ceiling. You should be sleeping, but instead, your brain is running this relentless loop. Am I doing enough? Should I have taken that job? Why does everyone else seem like they have it together? You scroll Instagram for a bit. Someone from high school just got promoted. Someone else just got engaged. Another person is backpacking through Southeast Asia, looking impossibly free and happy. And you're just here, wondering if you took a wrong turn somewhere. Here's what nobody tells you about your 20s. This feeling, this quiet, creeping sense that you're lost, behind, and running out of time. It's not a personal failure. It's almost universal, and there's a reason it happens. Let's start with the obvious question. Why does this generation feel so lost? Because objectively, we have more opportunity than any generation before us. More career paths, more information, more ways to connect, create, travel, and build something from nothing. But here's the paradox. More options don't make life easier. They make it harder. Psychologist Barry Schwartz called it the paradox of choice. When you have too many options, making a decision becomes agonizing. You don't just pick a path. You grieve every path you didn't choose. And you spend the rest of the time wondering if you chose wrong. 50 years ago, your career path was often decided by where you were born, what your parents did, or what your town needed. That's limiting, sure, but it's also clarifying. Now, you could be a software engineer, a travel blogger, a therapist, a startup founder, a content creator, a freelancer, or all of the above at the same time. The ceiling is gone, but so is the floor. And then there's comparison culture. We are the first generation to grow up watching a curated highlight reel of everyone else's life in real time, 24/7, right in our pockets. We scroll past someone's promotion announcement, someone's new apartment, someone's engagement photo, and somewhere in the back of our mind, a quiet voice whispers, "You're falling behind." But falling behind what, exactly? That's the thing. There's no actual finish line. There's no official scoreboard. The timeline we're comparing ourselves to, degree by 22, career by 25, relationship by 27, settled by 30, is completely made up. It's a cultural script written by people who lived in a completely different world. And yet we treat it like a deadline, like missing it means something. There's actually a name for what most people in their 20s experience. Psychologists call it the quarter-life crisis. It sounds almost like a joke, a crisis at 25, but it's real and it's been studied. The quarter-life crisis typically hits somewhere between 18 and 35. It's marked by feelings of uncertainty, anxiety about the future, a sense that you're not where you should be, and a deep, uncomfortable question, who am I and what am I doing with my life? But to understand why this happens, you have to understand what your 20s actually are from a psychological standpoint. According to developmental psychologist Erik, your 20s are the stage of identity versus role confusion. This is when you're supposed to figure out who you are, your values, your beliefs, your place in the world. It's not a comfortable process. It's supposed to feel like uncertainty because you're literally in the middle of becoming someone. The problem is, nobody tells you you're in this phase. Nobody hands you a map and says, hey, you're going to feel lost for a bit, and that's completely normal. Instead, you look around and assume everyone else has it figured out. They don't. They're just better at hiding it. But there's another layer to this that doesn't get talked about enough. It's not just social media messing with your head. It's something that started way earlier. Something you absorbed as a kid, a teenager, a young adult binge-watching shows at 1 a.m. It's the story television told you about what your 20s were supposed to look like. Think about it. You grew up watching Friends, 6 effortlessly attractive people living in a massive New York apartment on a waitress salary and a chef's income, spending every single afternoon on the same coffee shop couch. Never really stressed, always surrounded by people who loved them. Their lives were inconvenient sometimes, but they were never lonely, never truly adrift. The city felt like their playground. Their problems were interesting problems. You're in your 20s now, and life looks nothing like any of that. You're not having spontaneous brunches with your 4 best friends every weekend. Half of them moved to different cities. The other half are buried in work or relationships or their own quiet struggles. Getting everyone in the same room feels like a logistical miracle. You're definitely not living in a Pinterest apartment. You're splitting rent with strangers, or still at your parents' house, or surviving in a shoebox flat that smells slightly wrong. And the romance? It's mostly awkward situationships, confusing texts, and dates that feel like job interviews. Here's the thing about those shows. They weren't documentaries. They were fantasies. Carefully written, beautifully lit, emotionally convenient fantasies designed to be entertaining. The characters had conflict, sure, but the conflict always resolved in 22 minutes. The loneliness was always temporary. The friendship was always there. Real life doesn't have a writer's room making sure it all works out by the end of the episode. But we absorbed those images for years, and somewhere, without realizing it, we built a subconscious blueprint of what our 20s should feel like. And when reality doesn't match the blueprint, when it's quieter, messier, lonelier, more uncertain, we don't blame the blueprint. We blame ourselves. So let's reframe this. What if your 20s aren't supposed to be the decade where you have it all figured out, but the decade where you figure out what's worth figuring out? What if feeling lost isn't a sign that you're broken, but a sign that you're genuinely searching? The people who never feel lost in their 20s aren't always the ones who found themselves. Sometimes they're just the ones who stopped looking too soon, the ones who took the first path that appeared because ambiguity was too uncomfortable, and then spent the next decade quietly wondering if there was something else out there. The discomfort you feel, that's your mind refusing to settle for a life that doesn't fit. That's not something to fix. That's something to respect. Experimentation is the work of your 20s, trying things and failing at them, taking jobs you hate because now you know what you don't want, being in relationships that teach you who you are, moving to new places, changing your mind, embarrassing yourself, starting over. None of that is wasted time. All of it is data. And slowly, not all at once, not in a dramatic moment of clarity, you start to recognize yourself. Not because you found some predetermined version of you that was always waiting, but because you built someone through 1,000 small choices, failures, and recoveries. Here's what I want to leave you with. You are not behind. There is no race. The timeline you're measuring yourself against was invented to sell you things, courses, self-help books, hustle culture content that profits from your anxiety. The truth is quieter than that. Your 20s are not a performance, they're an exploration. An exploration, by definition, requires going places you've never been, which means sometimes feeling completely and utterly lost. That's not a malfunction. That's the point. The people who seem to have it all figured out, most of them are navigating the same fog. They're just doing it in different clothes. So if you're in the middle of that fog right now, unsure of your path, uncertain of your identity, quietly terrified that everyone else is ahead of you, I want you to know something. You are not falling behind. You are exactly where real growth happens. Keep going.